This video is now in session, and the Redistricting for 2021 has produced some new maps that we have not seen before in the state of Oregon and Colorado. So both of these states have maps proposed by the Democratic Party, the Republican Party, and by the Independent Commission of Colorado, or at least the Redistricting Commission of Colorado. So these are two states that lean Democratic or safe Democratic in the case of Oregon. So they're Democratic leaning states, and both states are growing by one electoral vote between 2010 and 2020. They have gained one electoral vote in 2020, or I guess one representative, because both states have grown by a very fast pace between the previous decade and this decade. So Oregon is going from 7 to 8 electoral votes, and then Colorado is going from 9 to 10 electoral votes, which means that Oregon has now has 6 seats. Colorado now has 8 seats in the House of Representatives. So let's first go into Colorado, because Colorado, they were the first state to propose a map, and you can see that this is their proposed map. Based on ratings from the Cook Political Report, we can begin to see the safe seats, the lean seats, and the likely seats for both the Republican and Democratic parties. So in this map, you have 3 Republican seats, 4 Democratic seats, and 1 competitive seat. And this is relatively in line with what happened in the 2020 election. You can see here that Joe Biden won by 55.4%, and this is the wrong tab. So 55.4%, that's just above a majority by 5%. So you can see here that a majority is 8 districts, and then you add a competitive district, then that creates something very similar to what happened in the 2020 election. Now, obviously, this 5th district could have been rated as solid Democratic if you did 5 divided by 9, or actually no, yeah, 5 divided by 8, actually, then you would have something similar to what happened in the 2020 election, but that would be a margin of 62.5% for the Democratic delegation in Colorado, which is why the Commission of Colorado decided to make this new seat competitive. You can see that even though it adds this map adds a seat, all of the incumbents get to keep their turf, albeit it has changed a little bit. You can see here that Joe Neguse used to have a lot more of the mountain regions that are to the west of Denver, but now he mainly has Fort Collins and Boulder. The reason why is because Boulder has grown a heck of a lot in the last decade, which is why the Colorado Redistricting Commission decided to minimize the extent that Neguse's district goes down south and down west. So that's one change to the district. You can also see that Colorado's 1st district essentially stays as it is, and that's the reason why is because this follows the lines of the Denver municipality, or I guess the Denver County. You can see right here that Denver County has exactly the amount of votes that you would need for a district to be made, and that is why wrong tab again, and that's why the Colorado Redistricting Commission kept that district so that it is in line with Denver County. And typically, redistricting commissions are fairer than redistricting than states with redistricting led by the state legislature. So you can see here that these Democratic seats are pretty non-competitive. They're all relatively high margins for the Democratic Party: 17%, 56%, 25%. Colorado's 8th district is the only Democratic seat that is kind of competitive, but not sort of, but not really. Ed Perlmutter has a partisan lean of D+8 rating, so it's still very winnable for the Democrats even during a red wave, but it's not completely safe for the Democratic Party. So you can see a comparison between the old and the new. The old map, you had Ed Perlmutter having a much better rating, and you had Jason Crow having a more competitive seat, but now Ed Perlmutter has the competitive seat while Jason Crow has a less competitive seat. And then finally, you have Colorado's 7th District, which has a partisan lean of Democratic +1. And in this seat, there is no incumbent because this is the additional seat. This is the newest seat that they've added. All the other seats, they have incumbents filled already. So that is Colorado. If you want to know the Republican ratings, you have R plus 26 here, R plus 19, and then R plus 14 for Lauren Boebert's seat. So they're all relatively uncompetitive, and the Democratic seats are relatively uncompetitive as well, with the exception of Colorado's 8th District and Colorado's 7th District. So that's the state of play at Colorado. If you look at the districts, you can see here that there are very high Hispanic margins in a lot of these seats. In the 1st District, in the 4th District, which is R plus 26, and then you also have the 8th District. These all have high concentrations of Latino voters, as seen by the pink bar. Especially the 8th District has a ton of Hispanic voters, and the reason why is because obviously, first of all, the Hispanic vote has grown in Colorado. But the other thing is that for redistricting, the one thing that they consider is race. If you have a district that is majority Hispanic, or if you have enough Hispanics, or if you have enough Black Americans in a state, then you can call for majority minority districts or a minority-led district. And what that means is that a coalition of voters, or a race of voters, like the Hispanic vote, for example, they are big enough to the point where they can have their own district, to the point where they can make up a district with 50% of the vote. And what that does is it gets them more likely to elect Hispanic politicians into Congress, and that translates to better policy for Latino voters in Colorado. So that's how majority minority districts works. That's how a commission may intentionally try to have Hispanics or Black Americans packed into a district. It's not necessarily due to racial gerrymandering, which is when you intentionally pack voters with the intention of race in mind for political gain, but instead it's about trying to get more voices and a more diverse coalition into Congress. So that's the map in Colorado. If we compare it to the old map, you can see here relatively unchanged for the most part, with the addition of one highly competitive seat. Now we have the state of Oregon to go over as well, and the reason why Oregon is pretty special is because it's one of the few states that Democrats can actually gerrymander for for this year's redistricting cycle. If we look at the national map as a whole, you can see that there are very few states that Democrats can gerrymander, because in the states that they do lead in the state legislature, a lot of the times their state has commissions. California, for example, has a commission. Arizona has a commission, Michigan commission, Virginia commission, and then Connecticut commission. So you have a lot of these states that have commissions, and as a result, that dilutes the amount of seats Democrats can actually gerrymander. So one of the few states that Democrats can gerrymander is Oregon. So Oregon is gaining a seat, and this is where Democrats might actually take a pretty big might take a pretty big punch at gerrymandering. If we look at their map, they have a 5-seat majority against the Republicans, and you can see here that that even though Colorado gains a seat, that Democrats are still taking that seat. And if we look at the election of Colorado, you can see that Joe Biden won by 56.5%, so a bit better than Colorado. But you can see here that Democrats have 5 out of the 6 seats, which is a very large disparity between between the 2020 election results and what actually happened, or in this map. 5 out of 6 is around 80%, or it's around 83%, and that is in direct conflict with Joe Biden's 56.5%. So you can see here that that is a very large gap. Really, Democrats should be looking for, if they were to be fair, then they would be looking more around 4 or 3 seats out of the 6 districts. Maybe around 4 districts, just because the Democrats can say that they have a majority. But this additional district right here, that is where it becomes gerrymandered. So you can see, in order to gerrymander Oregon, you have to crack Portland. Portland is the main Democratic vote from the 2020 election. You can see here that the Portland area got around 367,000 votes for the Democratic Party, which is a 79.2% lead for the Democrats. Meanwhile, you have an additional vote share in Salem, which is pretty competitive. It's a very narrow margin right there. So it's effectively even. And then you have a bit of an additional Democratic vote in Lane County with Eugene, and then a few more votes in Bend, which is a fast-growing part in Oregon. So this area right here are the main areas that Democrats can take their vote share from, and they're using both places in order to get pretty high margins. So here it's mainly taken the Eugene area and combining it with the Democratic, or I guess some moderate Republican vote along the Oregon coastline. And then you also have the 3rd district, which takes part of Portland and combines it with Bend. And then you have Oregon's 5th district and Oregon's 6th district. So Oregon's 5th district takes part of Salem and as well as Clackamas. And then here you have the 5th district that takes Benton County, Lincoln County, and then combines it with additional vote indirectly in Salem. And that is how, and they also, both districts combine it with the vote in Portland. And that's how you have 3 lean Democratic seats, 2 safe Democratic seat, and 1 highly safe Republican seat. It's a gerrymandered district. It's a gerrymandered map because you have a lot of packing and cracking going on. You're cracking the Portland area so that these 4 districts aren't competitive. And then you also have the cracking going on in South Oregon, where you're cracking the Republican areas of the Oregon coast with the rest of Southern Oregon. So for Oregon's 2nd district, this is absorbing all of the Republican vote in Oregon. So even though Democrats won by 56%, here they have 83% of the districts, and that's compared to their old map where they had 2 uncompetitive districts and 2 competitive districts. You can see here that this is a lot more representative of what Oregon looks like, where you have 1 safe and 2 safe right there. But then you have 2 competitive. So Democrats are still more likely to win the majority, but it's a 3-5 majority. More likely to win a 3-5 majority, which is more in line with the partisan influences of Oregon. So that's the old map compared to the new map, and you can see that there's a difference. Here, Oregon's 2nd district was Republican plus 19. Here, it's Republican plus 28. And the reason why is because Oregon's 3rd district goes down here. This is a Democratic area. And then Oregon's 2nd district extends out to here, where there's more Republican votes. So that is how Democrats are able to extend the partisan lean of Oregon, and that is the redistricting process at hand so far. There are many more states to go. Oregon and Colorado are just 2 of many, and there are still many states to watch: Arizona, California, Florida, Illinois, Michigan, North Carolina, New York, Ohio, Pennsylvania, Texas, and Virginia. All of these states are very important states when it comes to redistricting. Some of them are led by Republicans, a few of them led by Democrats, most notably in Illinois and New York, and then you have several that belong to a commission, like California, Colorado, Michigan, and Virginia. So that's the end of this video. Hope you enjoyed it. This video is now adjourned, and I'll see you in the next one.